To kind of counteract what Levi-Strauss was saying in the last lecture, it's not always a matter of ghosts having no homes, or at least of spirits and ghosts being that clearly defined. Because, of course, the fact that they are ambiguous means that the ghosts are kind of existing in between spaces. And part of the reading for this week from Fabian Graham is a photo essay which provides a kind of an exploration of a very specific tradition that exists in housing development projects. HDB is the Housing and Development Board. I don't think he actually makes that clear in the article, but regardless, and part of the so it's a spirit medium tradition where people are conjuring spirits, and part of the idea for those spirits is that you have to house them, and so the residents in those subsidized housing create houses for their spirits, which again, by Levi-Strauss's definition, ghosts should be in houses, spirits should just be roaming free. But in the context that they are conjured here, the spirits are in the underworld where they actually do not have a home, and therefore they are, in fact, flying around or whatever. But when they are conjured into the spirit world, they become in need of a home, and because of course this is what the residents are conjuring for themselves, and so in this context, making the spirits feel at home in their own home is also a way to, in a way, turn the spirits into ghosts, if you will. So it would be nice if the definitions were always as clear cut as the theory might want them to be, but obviously that's not always the case. And so far as we are trying to make sense out of ancient ghost traditions, it is also sometimes a little bit difficult to make sense out of exactly what people believed was a ghost or a spirit, depending on how we kind of project our understanding of ghosts and spirits on them. The the best known or most best recorded example of a ghost date from this particular tablet here, that is dated from 3,500 years ago, of a well, a person connected to another person, really. And as far as our interpretation is concerned, this is a tablet of a quote unquote miserable male ghost that is being carried away or tied to another person. And you know, this is the extent of the tablet itself. There's at least half of the piece that is missing, obviously. And this is also a rather small tablet. It's not exactly, you know, evident in these pictures or in this story, but this is just about the size of your hand. But there is on the back a writing, and the writing talks about a person kind of seizing hold of another, and that person becomes kind of tied to you, and there's instructions for a ritual to allow for a person to be released from this other person. And the ritual is pretty simple. It's about wearing certain items of clothing and just basic human care that is supposed to happen around sunrise. So, as far as our understanding of it, this is something that people do to conjure ghosts, or people used to do to conjure ghosts in the time of ancient Babylon. Um, and again, without the exact context, without our exact understanding of the practices of ancient Babylon, we can only surmise that this is, in fact, the instructions for a ghost. It could be some kind of an other ritual that we do not fully understand, but based on this engraving, based on the ritual, based on the time, and based on the general context of it, it would seem like, you know, if this was a mundane activity, if this was something that people did for just their day-to-day lives, they wouldn't have to record it any more than we have to record anything on paper. But we also know that ancient Babylonians had a tradition of storytelling, and so what that story is, whether a legend or myth, a ghost story or whatever it is somewhat ambiguous for us. And even in the terms of what we know about ghosts or what we typically connect with ghosts, the most common example that we are most likely all aware of is from Charles Dickens that we have mentioned before in this particular class. Charles Dickens having some kind of of a connection with the spirit world of some sort, for all that we know. And Dickens also wrote this story with the ghosts of Christmas past, and of course, how we picture these ghosts of Christmas past is partly informed by the TV representations, the cartoon representations of this book, whether or not we have read it. The idea of exactly what the ghost of Christmas past is really connected to a culture of telling the story over and over again. And in Dickens' story, the elderly Scrooge is being visited by ghosts, his business partner, first and foremost, and the spirits of Christmas past, the spirits of Christmas present, and the spirit of Christmas yet to come. And after their visits, Scrooge becomes less of a miser, less of a Scrooge, and kind of becomes a more a kinder person, I suppose. And so from this extract here, the cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below. Then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it." Its color changed, though, when, without a pause, it came through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. Upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up as though it cried, "I know him, Marley's ghost," and fell again. So, understanding that this is a ghost, as far as a Scrooge is concerned, is that the ghost has to do something supernatural, has to prove its ghostliness, if you will, by passing through the door, because sounds creaking in the house is not totally uncommon, as we mentioned also last week with the sisters pranking their sister, pranking their family members. um, Creaking houses are very easily explainable outside of the parameters of a ghost, but a presence passing through a door doesn't seem like it is a normal thing. Even if we think of ghosts or slash spirits as the wind, typically the wind is mostly stuck through the door, but we know that perhaps the wind could blow from underneath the door or between the cracks. It is not impossible that the wind could just go through a tiny little crack to be itself felt. So in that context, if it is the wind, if it is just a gust of air, then obviously the candle would flicker and um, the presence would be felt. But here the candle is given an expressive reaction. The candle is saying, "I know him. I know Marley's ghost," and obviously the candle knows the same people Scrooge does. Here, the real ghost is the fact that there's a connection between this spirit world and the material world, and the connection is the ghost itself. So Scrooge knows the ghost, the candle knows the ghost, the wind connects from one place to the other, from the outside room to the inside room, and the ghost becomes a connection that we have with something else, whether it's the past, whether it's the future, whether it's our life or our death or whatever it is on a more metaphysical level. The only reason why we have this awareness that this ghost exists is that we have a knowledgeable space that is disturbed by an unknown space, and that those two things meet in the shape of a ghost slash spirit, of course, because here the ghost is coming in through the space, not in the terms that Levi-Strauss put it in, but in the terms of it used to roam outside the room as a spirit, but once it becomes felt, it becomes a ghost again. So again, the connection to the ghost itself makes that the ghost as opposed to the space itself. So the things that we know, which could be very broad in terms of space, of course, but in terms of our life experience, maybe our physical understanding of the world, even maybe the laws as we know them, would essentially expand our vision of what a spirit could be. And as much as there are stories of ghosts that exist out there, there are very ancient stories of ghosts which connect with our existence and are there to remind us of exactly what we know and what we don't know. This particular story here comes back to us from the 13th century, part of a ancient Nordic tale that comes to us at the moment of a burial. On the night when the conductors of Thorgunna's funeral returned to Froda, there appeared, visible to all who were present, a meteor or spectral appearance resembling a half moon which glided around the boarded walls of the mansion in the opposite direction of the course of the sun and continued to perform its revolutions until the domestics retired to rest. This apparition was renewed every night during a whole week and was pronounced by Thor with a wooden leg to presage pestilence or mortality. Shortly after her husband shewed signs of mental alienation and gave various indications of having sustained the persecution of evil demons. This man was found dead in his bed one morning and then commenced a scene of ghost seeing unheard of in the annals of superstition. The first victim was Thor, who had presaged the calamity. So we have a woman named Thorgunna who arrives in, I think it's Iceland, in this place, and this person is a regular presence, of course, a regular human, but she is also connected with another presence, another arrival, the arrival of a meteor or a spectral presence. I'm not sure how those two things may be the same, but they might be. Those two things appeared at the same time-ish, or within the same time frame. And in the context of Thorgunna here becoming ill, but also having a bunch of possessions, those possessions become part of her representation, her material attachments to Earth, while the non-material representation, the quote-unquote spirit, quote-unquote ghost, here is passing around during the the funeral. So the people are able to see this present person, but the person enters a new state, the state of illness, and the state of illness is represented through this meteor slash spectral appearance, and that spectral appearance is kind of a harbinger of things to come, of future past, if you will, future yet to come. So the fact that this person is a representative, a connection to the outside world, is also understood by the locals as a larger sign. It could have been just a visitor. It could have been just a stranger visiting, but it was clearly something more than a visitor once there was the presence of a spirit was felt. And the longer story about that is that those traditions of connections between things that are material and things that are immaterial will certainly stretch into the much larger space that people are inhabiting. And in that case, of course, we have talked about houses because this is something that we are, this is the typical, the archetypical space that we are inhabiting. But our space is much bigger than our houses. Our spaces are sometimes open, and especially in the 13th century, of course, where our houses were a very different form of buildings, very much more rudimentary, and especially for ordinary people like you and me. And once again, we can look at outside of Europe to find the ways in which at Labu and Selangor, I heard on more than one occasion a story in which the elephant folk were described as possessing on the borders of Siam a city of their own where they live in houses like human beings and where their natural human shape. Here follows the story of an elephant wounded in the foot who is the daughter of a king and who marries a human being and has children, but finally becomes an elephant again. Ghost elephants are not uncommon. They are popularly believed to be harmless but invulnerable and are generally supposed to exhibit some outward and visible sign of their sanctity, such as a stunted tusk or a shrunken foot. They are the tutelary genii of certain loyalties, and when they are killed, the good fortune of the neighborhood is supposed to depart too. So ghost animals also exist, or spirit animals of some sort exist, not in the sense of the thing that bears your luck, but a thing that exists and to whom your existence is linked to the extent that it is part of your world as well. So you are able, through those visible signs here, a shrunken foot or a stunted tusk, to know that this is a sacred animal of some sort, and any kind of um, bad luck or any kind of ill will towards these animals would cause also bad luck and ill will in your own world. So it is a lot more complex than just inhabiting a space, but it is much more a matter of that specific connection to the place, to the land, and to the beings that inhabit it.